welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we really get into those stories, the ones that make you stop and think, maybe question things a bit.
Absolutely.
And today, wow, today we have a legendary one. We're talking a global icon, a really tragic death, supposedly, a secret kept for decades.
And a massive alleged cover-up involving intelligence agencies, no less.
Exactly. We are, of course, diving deep into the infamous Paul is dead conspiracy, specifically that core claim. The original Paul McCartney died back in 1966.
And was replaced.
Yeah. Now, this deep dive, it's built on a lot of material. We've got exhaustive research stuff compiled over years. And then there's this alleged revelation from an insider, which is, frankly, pretty surprising.
It changes the game, potentially.
It really does. So our mission today, let's unpack these claims. Let's look at the evidence they present, the alleged evidence.
Right.
And really try to distill what it all means. You know, the implications, if even like a fraction of this story turns out to be true. Okay, let's unpack this.
It's quite the rabbit hole. And what's striking right off the bat from these sources we looked at is how they present it. Not just as, a theory.
Like fan speculation.
Exactly. They frame it as, quote, in fact, a real conspiracy. That's a strong statement.
That is a staggering assertion. So what is it, according to these sources, that pushes it beyond speculation? Why are they so convinced it's, real?
Well, the core idea they put forward is the sheer number of people involved. They argue it stems from the number of willing participants who, by necessity, had to participate in it.
Ah, okay. So for a secret that big to hold for so long, it had to involve many people, all keeping quiet.
Precisely. And they also point to what they call a massive body of forensic proof. Things like anecdotal testimony, scientific photograph assessment, voice analysis comparisons, circumstantial evidence, too, all supposedly gathered online, backing up these pretty extraordinary reports.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because what truly sets this deep dive apart from, the usual Paul is dead talk is this monumental claim about a confession. Direct. The one element that's always been missing from this whole story.
The smoking gun, so to speak.
Yeah, a Beatle actually stepping forward, telling the unvarnished truth. And our sources claim Ringo's star has finally done just that.
Indeed. According to the material we've gone through, Ringo's alleged confession, it apparently came in an exclusive interview with the Hollywood Inquirer, and it was also reported by a World News Daily report.
Okay, and what did he allegedly say?
He reportedly stated that Paul's death, it happened in a car crash, November 9th, 1966, right after a heated argument during a Beatles recording session.
A car crash after an argument at a session? That's incredibly specific. Dramatic, too, what supposedly happened right after, according to Ringo's alleged account.
Well, Ringo allegedly describes just immediate panic. Understandable, right?
Totally.
And he claims their manager, Brian Epstein, was the one who suggested hiring a temporary replacement.
Temporary?
Yeah, a guy named William Shears Campbell. Apparently, he'd won a McCartney look-alike contest.
No way.
Yeah. And he supposedly had this jovial personality, quite similar to Paul's. The idea, allegedly, was just a short-term fix, a temporary solution, maybe a week or two, just to buy them some breathing room.
So, okay, the initial plan was temporary.
Yeah.
But obviously it became permanent. How on earth could a swap like that? How could it actually go unnoticed? By the public, sure, but even, people closer to the band.
It seems the sources suggest, the temporary fix just sort of stuck because, as Ringo allegedly put it, nobody seemed to notice.
Nobody noticed, really.
Yeah, that's the claim. He's quoted saying this Billy Shears, or William Campbell, turned out to be a pretty good musician, and apparently he could perform almost better than Paul.
Wow.
The only real friction point, it seems, was that he struggled to get along with John Lennon. And here is a fascinating detail from these accounts. This William Shears Campbell, he apparently does indeed disappear from records in 1966, like poof, no public trace after Paul's alleged death date.
That is interesting. So, okay, why now? Why would Ringo, after all these decades, 50-plus years, why reveal something so utterly monumental? What's the alleged motivation?
The material points to the sheer weight of it all, the burden of the secret.
I can only imagine.
Right. With the other bandmates gone, John, George, Brian Epstein. He was reportedly terrified the deception would just die with him. He was 74, apparently, when he supposedly made this declaration, afraid the truth would be lost forever.
That makes a certain kind of sense, still. It just begs the question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If this were true, keeping that secret for that long, it would require immense power, coordination.
Absolutely.
So who did these sources say was behind it all?
Yeah.
And crucially, why?
Okay, so the sources dig into this pretty deep. The main reason alleged, the shock wave, the unprecedented shock Paul McCartney's death would have caused. Think about it. Millions of young fans worldwide, often described as, delirious.
Yeah, Beatlemania was intense.
Intense is an understatement. They actually recount this specific anecdote from the Beatles' 1965 U.S. tour, Shea Stadium. New York City policemen reportedly described, get this, rivers of urine.
Seriously?
Seriously. From girls who were genuinely in altered states. It sounds bizarre, but it really paints a picture of the kind of mass hysteria they were supposedly dealing with. The potential for just widespread social chaos.
Rivers of urine. Wow, okay, that certainly highlights the scale of their influence.
Yeah.
So if the fear was that big, who allegedly orchestrated the cover-up? Who had the power to pull that off?
The material we're looking at points fingers directly at British intelligence, specifically MI5 and MI6.
MI5 and MI6.
Yes, together with the British monarchy and Parliament. That's the claim, that they made a very swift command decision to hide the death.
Good Lord. So the government itself.
That's the allegation. There's even a theory suggesting MI5 coordinated the whole thing, possibly as a, quote, black operation, like a covert, unsanctioned mission, and maybe overseen by the Tavistock Institute.
Tavistock. I've heard that name in other conspiracy contexts. Social engineering, psychological operations.
Exactly. That's the connection they draw. And the alleged motive. Simple, really. The Beatles had way too much power and influence. Power that intelligence services wanted to, well, take advantage of. Maybe steer it, leverage it somehow.
Okay, so if this massive deception was happening, so meticulously planned, were there any cracks, any hints? Did the alleged replacement, or even, John, George, Ringo, did they ever try to signal anything?
According to these sources, yes. They claim the group intentionally sent out hidden messages over the years, little clues kind of woven into their work, the idea being to subtly prepare the population for the truth.
Hidden messages, like the stuff people find playing records backward, or on album covers.
Some of that, yeah. They specifically point to the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album, calling it awash with Paul's dead clues.
Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
Of course.
And think about it. The album introduces this fictional band member named Billy Shears.
Right. The one and only Billy Shears.
Exactly. And these sources claim that was the actual name of Paul's replacement. William Shears Campbell. Billy Shears.
Whoa. Okay, that's a direct link, if true. Did Ringo mention these clues in his supposed confession?
He reportedly did. He's quoted as saying something like, "We felt guilty about the deception. We wanted to tell the world the truth, but we were afraid of the reactions."
Understandable fear, given the rivers of urine thing.
Right. So he continues, allegedly. "So we kept lying, but sending subtle clues to relieve our consciousness." It's worth remembering, too, that the whole Paul is dead rumor did first flare up. Back in '69, American college students started it.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that initial wave.
But it mostly died down after Life magazine published a contemporary interview with McCartney in November '69, kind of squashed it, publicly at least.
So the official story quieted things down back then, but this research we're digging into, it suggests there was something much deeper going on all along.
Precisely. And the sources also highlight a specific book, Dr. Nick Kullstrom's 2015 book, The Life and Death of Paul McCartney, 1942 to 1966, a very English mystery. They say it provides a riveting account that really supports this whole narrative.
Okay, so it's not just about Paul then. It sounds like this could be part of a bigger pattern. What does this all mean for, the whole Beatles story, their legacy? Do the sources connect this to other strange events around the band?
They absolutely do. The alleged Paul conspiracy, if you accept it, isn't seen as isolated. It's potentially linked to other suspicious events, suggesting maybe a larger pattern of manipulation or something else.
Like what?
Well, they mentioned Brian Epstein's death in 1967, officially an overdose. But these sources suggest his knowledge of Paul's death led to serious personal problems, maybe contributing to his demise.
The manager who supposedly suggested the replacement.
Exactly. Then there's George Harrison. His death from various cancers, relatively young at 58, described as suspect in some of this material.
Suspect how? Just the age, or?
It's usually framed within this broader context of potential interference or unnatural events surrounding the band members who might have known too much or become problematic.
And then, of course, John Lennon.
Yes. Lennon's assassination.
Yep.
Utterly shocking. The sources connect this directly, too. They describe Mark David Chapman as a potential Manchurian candidate.
Meaning, like, mind-controlled.
Yeah.
Programmed.
And that's the implication, yes. And they allege the assassination was a direct result of his ardent anti-war stance and incessant world peace message. That his activism made him a target for these same shadowy forces.
Oh, that paints a very dark picture.
It does. These sources really emphasize Paul McCartney's influence, right? As the premier singer for the first and most famous of all the British invasion bands, he wielded this inordinate degree of influence over that whole era, the golden age of rock.
So the idea here is, it's not just about one musician dying. It's about controlling a massive cultural movement.
That seems to be the core assertion. The narrative suggests that throughout the development and evolution of the rock and roll revolution, there were always two sides operating in the background.
Two sides? Like who?
It's framed almost like, well, like powerful factions, hidden forces, trying hard to influence the direction and the content and the spirit of the movement, vying for control, basically.
That's a chilling thought. Rock and roll is a battleground for hidden agendas.
And they claim you can only really understand the real backstory of Paul McCartney if you see him as the mega Macker-like, the central, incredibly influential piece in this whole covert, multi-decade operation. An Anglo-American operation, they call it, aimed at managing cultural influence.
Mega Macker. That's quite a term. It's almost cinematic, isn't it? But let's step back a second. What about the replacement himself, this William Campbell or F. Paul or whatever you call him? What about the human side? The sources talk about sacrifice.
They do. It's an interesting perspective they offer, regardless of, who he really is. This new Paul, sometimes they just call him Fall for fake Paul, or just F. He was supposedly tasked with one of the toughest jobs in the world.
I'll say, living someone else's life under that kind of spotlight.
Exactly. The sources suggest he was basically compelled to leave behind his real identity for the rest of his life. And the framing is, well, almost noble. Done in the interests of the greater good for all of humankind.
The greater good.
Yeah, they describe it as potentially one of the greatest sacrifices made in modern times. Imagine the psychological burden, never being yourself again.
It's almost unimaginable. So fast forward to today. Are there any official ripples? Any investigations into these claims now, especially after Ringo's alleged statement?
Well, the material does highlight one alleged current development. Apparently, British MI5 also announced an investigation.
And an investigation?
Yeah.
Into what, specifically?
Into whether an imposter could actually have posed for 48 years, mind you, as Sir James Paul McCartney, a member of the Order of the British Empire, during official ceremonies, even involving Queen Elizabeth II.
MI5 investigating if the Paul McCartney the Queen knighted was an imposter.
That's the claim reported in these sources. It's important to add, though, that the actual Paul McCartney, Sir Paul, and his whole team, they haven't commented at all on Ringo's alleged declaration. Silence from that camp.
Silence. Okay, well, what an absolutely extraordinary claim we've unpacked today. I mean, from an alleged car crash, a look-alike replacement, decades of secrecy, right up to a global cover-up potentially run by intelligence agencies to manage culture itself.
Yeah.
What stands out most to you after digging into all this?
For me, I think it's just the sheer scale of it all. The audacity of the alleged deception. The idea that someone so globally famous, so recognized, could be replaced meticulously for decades. And then the interwoven narrative. Intelligence agencies, Tavistock, controlling rock and roll. It's just, it's almost too big to fully comprehend,
It really is. It definitely leaves you thinking, and maybe this is the thought to leave our listeners with. Yes. And it's a huge if based on these sources, but if cultural movements, if the actual identities of global icons could potentially be managed, manipulated, even replaced to this extent, what does that possibly reveal about the unseen forces that might be shaping our world? And maybe how much of what we perceive as reality is actually, well, a carefully constructed narrative